if you can have like a very big billboard, if you can put anything on it, like a word or sentence or even a drawing, and this message can be shown to millions or billions of people, what would you put on that billboard, and what is the reason that you put it on it?
Thank you, great question. Right now, get vaccinated. Because I think last year we all have this kind of psychological, artificial deadline for the global pandemic. We think, oh, 2021 will be better, right? Here we are in mid of 2021, is it better? A lot of people now think, oh, but after summer will be better. So guess what? We've been looking at the data right now with the current pace of how vaccine is being distributed and administrated in the world. We can easily be in this mess for another 4 years at least. That does not account for all the different variants, coming to the world, right? As long as the virus is passing through the population, there will be more variants, right? So when people say, I don't need to take vaccine because there are not many cases in Hong Kong, or I'm young, I will be okay. No, your job is to cut off the link, right, for the virus to passing through. And every single time there's a new variant is a new race. And there are a lot of people talking about, oh, mRNA vaccine can adjust and adapt to different variants very quickly. But guess what? None of the mRNA vaccine providers are distributing their vaccines to the bottom billion in the world for free or at very little cost, right? So there's no use at all. So I think, especially in Hong Kong, when it's free and it's right there, we should all get vaccinated so we can all get back to normal, right? Understand the people have real medical condition, whatnot, have concern, but if you're healthy, it's our job, it's our responsibility to get vaccinated. And otherwise, I think right now we're still talking about inconvenience for travel or maybe some economic loss. But by the third and fourth year, I can guarantee you we'll be talking about security issues instead of economic issues. So my billboard will very large and say, get vaccinated.
Thank you. Our second question is, in the last 5 years, is there any new belief, habit or behavior that you find very, significantly improved your life?
Very good question. I started meditation. So I have this kind of personality, just very cynical about anything new age, and I used to think meditation is kind of hippie, and it's not me. And my husband, who's much more spiritual than me, he always told me you should try meditation. I said that's for hippies, it's not for me. And I'm an Aspen fellow, Aspen Institute fellow. So every year they have this conference to basically you do some reading, and then you sit in a room like this with 20 other fellows, and you talk about the reading, and basically it's a very much kind of a soul-searching process, right? And to make you a better leader. And a few years ago, I'm always very driven and always quite ambitious and not really thinking about anything else, right? So a few years ago, before I went to Aspen Institute, there was one poetry in the reading. It's about pruning your garden, and it's about how if you want to take care of your garden, let your garden to thrive, you have to prune your garden sometimes, right? And I remember I was sitting on my plane and going to Aspen, reading the poetry. I was thinking, oh yeah, I need to resign from this board because I'm sitting on too many of those boards and advisory boards, and it's not effective, and you need to and in this way you can do better, you can go further, that was my thinking. And so the Aspen Institute's seminars format is that you do this reading and you sit in the room, and the moderator will ask you, right, what do you think, right? So, and they will first ask you to read the text. So my moderator in the room said, Jen, why don't you read the poetry? And I was reading the poetry, and in front of everyone, at that moment I realized, I just realized this poetry is not about, be more focused so you can achieve more. It's about taking care of yourself, right? And it's just suddenly dawned on me, I never take care of myself. I never even asked that question, right? I always focus on what's the next thing you have to achieve, you have to do this. And so because of that realization and that moment, I was reading the poetry and I burst into tears. And you know, my other fellows asking, are you okay? I said, no, it's not okay. I never thought about taking care of myself. And this is the first time I realized you gotta take care of yourself. So the moderator, she told me, she said, you have to try meditation. And that was when I was convinced and downloaded this Headspace. And so I spent the first year, basically 10 minutes a day. First year I tried to meditate, I just fall asleep, you know. Basically I didn't, you know, get anything out at all, apart from nice, you know, quick nap, right? But now I think this is maybe my 3rd or 4th year in. I think meditation just completely changed my life. I think, you know, for those who have not tried before, meditation basically allows you to observe your emotion as opposed to be consumed by your emotion, right? So we all face all kind of, you know, emotion, especially if you have big responsibility, complex life situations. You know, sometimes it's quite easy to be, you know, overwhelmed by emotion, right? But meditation, that practice, will allow you to say, oh, okay, I just observed I was quite sad, that's sadness, or I was quite lonely, that's loneliness, you know, and you kind of departure and become an observer. That's when you can observe your emotion, that's the highest level of human intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence. So even if you fall asleep, I highly recommend try a meditation. It's not for hippies, it's for everybody.
How do you meditate? Do you have like a schedule, or like do you just, I know some people just meditate when they taking bath. How do you do that?
I try to, every day I try to do 10 minutes, whenever I have a 10 minutes gap. And I also, you know, you can do micro meditation, right? So basically 30 seconds or 1 minute, right? Even if you sit in the office in front of a computer, you can spend just 1 minute to take deep breath and then just, you know, focus on your breathing and focus on that moment. Just stay present, and even that can make a big difference.
Yeah, and Headspace is a very good app to start with because of all the cute animation.
Which one? The
Headspace.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so cute, the animations, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's yeah. I try to get my kids to meditate, but of course they don't listen to me right now. So it's a life hack. I think, you know, meditation is a life hack. Ah, great question. Believing myself. I think because of my upbringing that, you know, I always felt I was not enough, right? You know, everywhere I went, I did not belong. You know, even you know, moving from Yang'an, so Yang'an and Chengdu, 150 kilometers, but guess what? The accent's different. So when I went to Chengdu to go to university, and I had to fake, you know, I'm quite good at, you know, learning language, right? So I could fake the Chengdu accent perfectly, but of course at that time there's no Google, right? So I couldn't find the most obvious landmark. It's a little bit like, you know, in Hong Kong you speak perfect Cantonese and you say where's IFC, right? You know, you ask people where's IFC. so you know, every step along I didn't belong, right? And so I always feel like, you know, because I didn't belong, so I'm not enough. But as I'm getting older, actually, being to many rooms with a lot of impressive people, you know, took me way too long to realize the only person who's been discounting myself is actually myself. So I think, you know, don't discount yourself, because that will waste a lot of your time. Yeah, I have done that, and I can't get my time back. But since I'm still 25, so I can start over again.
Yeah, I actually learned a lot this kind of mindset from a lot of our mentors too, because as like a physical speaker, you're very successful, you have a lot of achievement, but during your sharing, you also have a lot of difficulties that you are facing, and that's kind of related to ourselves. Like, even though we are like a junior, very early in our career, but still, one day perhaps we can also become that successful like yourself. And
Of course you can. You have to believe in yourself. I think, sounds such cliche, but it's so true. In this world, nobody has obligation to believe in you, right? So if you yourself don't believe yourself, then nobody's gonna even pay attention, right? But if you believe in yourself, you're gonna make fool of yourself for a few times, and you're gonna look completely silly and stupid. I've done that many times. But guess what? One day, if you aim to get to the moon, and if you only landed that halfway, you still go very high, right? All of this is very cliche, but it's very, very true. So if you want other people to believe you, you have to believe in yourself first. That's very different compared to being egoistic, right? Ego means your expectation of yourself or your image of yourself is completely way bigger than who you actually are, right? And that becomes ego. Ego is a distraction. But believing yourself is instead of inflating bigger, is actually anchor, right? That's the fundamental difference. So when you believe yourself, you think what I have now is good, is enough, right? Instead of saying, I have to inflate myself, therefore I feel good about myself, right? So this is a fundamental difference, very, very, big difference you have to pay attention to. There's a very good author. He's actually similar age, maybe just a few years older than most of you. His name is Ryan Holiday, and he wrote a book called Ego is the Enemy, and he has a newsletter called Daily Stoic. So Stoicism is a philosophy, right? So his newsletter. If you don't have time to read the book, it's very easy to read. But if you don't have time to read the book, just search Daily Stoic to subscribe to the newsletter, and he will tell you, by mostly from ancient Rome, this kind of philosophy, and to tell you historical stories and give you daily wisdom in terms of how to stay anchored, right? The kind of very solid, very inner belief rather than external egocentric outer kind of storytelling, if you like. Again, very good question. I think don't take what you have for granted, right? It's always very easy to see what you don't have, but if you focus on looking at everything that's around you, you have a lot of tools in your toolbox. So don't lose focus on what you already have, right? And working from there, because guess what? Life is never gonna be perfect, and you will forever feel like you're missing something. But if you focus on what you already have, you will realize actually you have a lot of opportunities and a lot of tools for you to achieve what you want to achieve. The biggest tool in your toolbox is that you're young. You have time. A lot of people don't even have that, right? And I am now, a lot older than you, and I still feel like my life has just started because, number one, I think, becoming old is a privilege, right? A lot of people don't get to become old. Number two, if you want to do something, you will always be at the oldest age of your past self, but the youngest age of your future self. So you can always start whatever you want to do, right? So don't take for granted, and you have a lot of opportunities in front of you. And I think the fact that you are willing to contribute your most valuable asset to the community by doing community work, so we will have the time to have this exchange, that itself has already set you apart compared to a lot of your peers, right? So I feel so honored. This is how we we get to meet each other. So I feel, I should thank all of you for everything you do for our community. So thank you.
Thank you.